Hello, I'm doing a movie review, and the movie I want to review is Batman and Harley Quinn. Now, this is an animated superhero comedy, which was released straight to DVD and Blu-ray in 2017. Now, the movie is done in the same animation style and is arguably in the same continuity as Batman the Animated Series, obviously taking place before the flashback sequences that you saw in the film Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Now, this might be kind of a short review, because recently me and some friends of mine did a retrospective on all the animated Batman films, and in that video we talk about this movie at length. So, I'm not really going to spend too much time talking about this movie because you're going to hear me talk about this movie more in that retrospective. This is going to be more of a quick, like, me getting my thoughts out of the way sort of thing. Now, this movie incorporates a lot of aspects of the Swamp Thing mythos, and Swamp Thing does show up at the end of this movie. Now, the plot of Batman and Harley Quinn is Poison Ivy teams up with a villain called the Floronic Man, who is this plant creature from another dimension who has human intelligence and has a human personality, and they believe that the only way to truly save the human race and the environment is to essentially make the human race and the environment interchangeable. They have gotten their hands on the chemical compound of Dr. Alec Holland's formula. Alec Holland is the man who became Swamp Thing, and basically what they're trying to do now is they're trying to turn the entire human race into vegetable hybrids. But soon it becomes apparent that this is not actually going to work, and all it's going to do is bring about the extinction of the human race. So, Batman and Nightwing are racing against time to try to stop Poison Ivy and the Floronic Man, and their only hope may lie in Poison Ivy's only friend, Harley Quinn. Now, Batman and Harley Quinn I thought was a very entertaining film. It is a little goofy, but the film's a comedy, which I was actually not expecting when I first watched this movie. I was not expecting it to be a full-fledged comedy, but that's pretty much what it is, and there are a lot of tributes in this movie to the Adam West Batman. Now, the one thing that was a little off-putting for me, only because this is supposed to be in continuity with Batman the Animated Series, which was a kids show, but this movie is definitely not for kids. Like, it's rated PG-13, and I think it definitely earns its PG-13 rating, because there's a lot of sexual humor in this movie, which I wouldn't mind, but at the same time, though, it's in continuity with a show that was, for all intents and purposes, meant for children. Like, Harley Quinn is very sexualized in this movie. Now, I know in the comics and in the video games, and in the recent Suicide Squad movie, she was a very sexualized character in those, but I never really got that from the animated series version of Harley Quinn. Like, in the movie, there's a scene where Nightwing and Harley Quinn fuck. There's also a scene in the movie where Harley Quinn, in order to get information, has to dance provocatively on stage, and she actually shakes her tits at one point. So again, there's a lot of sexual humor in the movie, which I'm not really, like, against by any means, but at the same time, though, knowing this is supposed to be in continuity with the animated series, that's what makes it a little off-putting. But Harley Quinn is likable in the film, and you are rooting for her, and in the film it really does seem like she's going straight, which makes it a little sad, because if this is in continuity with Batman the Animated Series, if you take into account the continuity of Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, you know this whole Harley going straight thing doesn't last. Which is why this movie would almost work better if it was set outside of that continuity. Now, in this film, the Floronic Man really is the main villain. Poison Ivy is really just the secondary antagonist in this. Now, even though what the Floronic Man is doing is freaking terrifying, the character is, for the most part, played up for laughs in this film. And the way they defeat the Floronic Man at the end of this film is freaking hilarious. My only issue with the character being played up for laughs in this movie is I recently read the first volume of Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, and Alan Moore made the Floronic Man the main villain of the first story arc in that series. Now, I know Alan Moore did not originally create the character, but in Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, the Floronic Man is a scary motherfucker. One thing in the movie that's really funny, for those of you who remember the first Two-Face episode of Batman the Animated Series, Two-Face's twin henchmen from that episode make a brief appearance in this movie where they're singing a duet on stage. But yeah, Batman and Harley Quinn I personally enjoyed. Because of all the sexual humor in the film, I would not recommend it for kids, even though it's arguably in continuity with a kid's show. But it's definitely made for people who grew up on the animated series. But that was my review on Batman and Harley Quinn, and bye.